Our Plant Stories has been nominated as a finalist in the Independent Podcast Awards in a new category called Environment and Natural World. I'll let you know how we get on. Thanks to all those who are regular supporters of the podcast with their commitment to buying a monthly coffee. And to Anne, who also sent some caffeine my way this month, all of which goes towards paying for this podcast, the hosting platform and the editing programme. The link is in the show notes. And now, a plant story. Welcome to Our Plant Stories, a podcast that shares stories about plants. And by sharing the stories, we grow our plant knowledge through the experience, passions, and sometimes quite remarkable knowledge of other plant growers. And the stories? Well, they take us all over the world.
The funny thing is that in Moscow, where I live, the snails do not seem to eat hostas. So we have hundreds of beautiful hostas in our garden in Moscow, and it's an absolute joy because I love hostas.
Hostas, they're just fabulous. They're all about the leaf, basically. They come in a range of sizes, from the size of your fingernail to 4 foot high.
I too love hostas. So it's perhaps not surprising that I was drawn to the display stand of Vicky Meads and New Forest hostas at the Chelsea Flower Show a couple of years ago. And I was so taken with her enthusiasm and knowledge and warmth. And we did talk snails. So even if you've never grown a hosta, or you've slightly lost heart because hostas in the past have been eaten by snails, listen on. Because Vicky Meads is really inspiring, and it doesn't matter how small your space. There's room for a hosta. If not a big one, a miniature one. But of course, we start with the plant story. I've been working on the idea for this podcast for over a year, and back at the beginning, I asked friends to talk about their plants as I searched for the right format. Alison Rogers is an old friend, and we've always talked plants. She prefers to grow things you can eat. When we first met, she had an allotment. As I began to record back in January 2022, she was living in Moscow, where her husband Malcolm is the chaplain of St Andrew's Anglican Church. There's a brick-built English-style church and vicarage and a garden, all about 10 minutes' walk from the Kremlin. Ali had started a gardening group.
Hello, it's Alison here from Moscow, Russia. It's the 25th of January, and I'm just stepping outside my door to our garden, which is the church garden, which is sort of not my own personal garden, but I help garden it, and it's a place where people can come and sit on the bench and enjoy the flowers and the trees that are here. Although they won't be sitting on the bench at the moment because we are in the dead of winter. And today it's now -9, but it was -12 this morning when I woke up, and I'm going to just walk around the garden to give you a feel of what it's actually like here in the middle of January in Russia. Well, the first thing you can see as you come out of my house is white. It's lots of white. There is a lot of snow everywhere. I'm about 5'6" or 7, and if I put my arm out, I literally touch the top of the snow piles of snow. Underneath that big pile of snow at the front of our house are hydrangeas that we transplanted a couple of years ago. They've been doing well. Hostas that we have along the borders, which grow excellently here in Russia. I don't know why. They must have a different version of snails here than in England. But yeah, they seem to do well. Now I'm walking across our little car park over to the area where we have more sort of a bit more like an English garden with a couple of lovely trees and lots of bulbs that come out in the spring, and just generally a herbaceous border. I'm actually going to have to climb over a rather large pile of snow. My legs are going right down into the snow. and it's almost coming across the top of my boot now. There we go, I'm over now, and I'm on to the area which is usually, there's a path here and some grass, and that's where we have benches where people can just sit and take in the beauty of the garden.
And then things changed with the invasion of Ukraine. And Alison sent me this recording in March 2022.
It's with a heavy heart and great sadness that this is maybe my last walk around St Andrew's Garden, where there's no knowing what sort of Russia I'll be coming back to, if at all, as I and many other expats are leaving Russia this week, with the situation in the world. So just thought I'd tell you what's happening in the garden, because that keeps going. Even though lots of things are changing around it continues to push forth new shoots and continue to grow. So it's actually really cold again today. It's -5 and it was -12 last night. Perhaps that's not just a physical coldness, that's perhaps a metaphor as well. I had to just stop there because I got a bit sad. But the wonderful thing about gardens is that there's always a sense of hope. As I walk now, I can see the shoots of the crocuses, and there's actually even some snowdrops up. They're really beautiful, coming out through the bark that's over the ground. Perhaps that's where I should stop with hope.
If you've listened to the programme on mint, which is actually about gardening in Ukraine, you'll have heard Lally Snow also talk about how gardens can offer hope. Alison was back in the UK for about 6 months, and then another move.
I'm packing up to go back to Moscow, and you know what it's like when you pack to go somewhere. There's always decisions, what to take and what to leave. And one of my decisions this time is, what do I do with my hosta? I inherited this hosta from my father-in-law, who sadly died in April this year, and I brought it back to our house in Norfolk. As I leave, and there's no one going to be here, do I plant it in the ground so it has its roots can get some moisture, but then leave it to the wrath of the snails, or do I leave it in the pot and possibly let it get very dry? Big decision. Well, I've decided I'm actually going to leave it in the pot, hoping that it is eventually going to rain a bit here in this country. And because I'm really not sure I want to leave it as a delicious feast for the snails.
Ali's hostas and the lack of snails in her Moscow garden had been a recurring theme in our gardening chats, so I brought Alison together with Vicky Meads. Vicky runs New Forest Hostas, which is an RHS Chelsea gold medal winning nursery set in the heart of the New Forest in Hampshire. I'll put all the details on the website. Vicky, I came across you at one of the big shows and you had a stand of amazing hostas. You were also a fount of knowledge about snails, which we'll come to later. But I wanted to ask you, how did you come to be growing hostas? What's your story about hostas?
What's my story? Well, I've collected. I was a collector for years, always been passionate about them. My mother had a nursery and a garden that was open to the public, basically, called Apple Court, which is not far from where I live now. And basically that previously had specialised in hostas, and it was owned by people called Diana Grenfell and Roger Grounds. Diana was the one who was really involved in the hosta world. and bred many hostas and bits and pieces, but she took on that business. And the love grew and grew. But I always wanted to grow them and go into business myself. But my mother, it was her favourite thing too. And I didn't want to step on her toes. She didn't want to relinquish what she had and let me take over the hosta part and let her concentrate on the garden and other things. So I didn't do it for many years. And then as soon as she retired and sold the house and the business, I then thought, right, now it's my turn, and divided up my collection and went from there. And it very quickly grew, very quickly, where I was only planning on doing a few little plant fairs and, just make a little bit of money. And now it's turned into this most enormous beast of a business. And it was my husband's fault that he was the one who said, I think we should contact the RHS. And from then, we've never looked back. It has been phenomenal. The whole thing so far has been amazing. The journey has been amazing, yes, and non-stop and totally crazy. We have no life. If I'm not potting, I'm watering. If I'm not watering, I'm looking for slugs. So it's just non-stop.
What is it you like about them? What attracts you to hostas?
Hostas, they're just fabulous. They're all about the leaf, basically. They come in a range of sizes, from the size of your fingernail to 4 foot high. They have got a variety of different leaves and shapes. The colour leaf, so you can have from goldens to various different shades of greens and to blues, but they are so contrasting and they're just fabulous.
Ali, you're basically living with this amazing collection of hostas in Moscow, aren't you? Which are stunning. Well, when they appear from underneath the snow, obviously.
Yes, I am. I turned up here 6 years ago, Vicky, and there's a lot of garden here. It's a big sort of territory, if you like, outside our house and the church. And the predominant plant, obviously, that survives here is the hosta. There are great big sort of swathes of hostas, and sort of bunches of hostas in groups. About 3 different varieties, I would say, no more than that at the moment. Well, I'll tell you something in a moment. And I just thought, wow, these are amazing, these hostas, because of course in the UK I've tried to grow hostas before, and of course you then have this fight with the snails and the slugs, and I found it very, very difficult to grow any that didn't have holes in all the leaves. So here, I mean, it was just amazing to see these beautiful, great big leaves, beautiful, shiny and wide and abundant and really growing well, just thriving. And I started to say, right, we're going to have to put those hostas all the way around the borders because they obviously grow well here. So I'm dividing them, I'm throwing them in, I'm not really worried about them at all. And they've just survived and they've just been fantastic. It's a question I want to ask you, Vicky, because I suppose I sort of know the answer. I mean, why do they grow so well here? We have this continental climate in Moscow where we have very cold winters and very warm summers, again, up to 30, 35. But the humidity here is very, very low. It's very dry. So actually it makes the cold able to, you can cope with the cold, and actually you can cope with the heat too, because it's very dry. It's not humid at all. And I don't think I've hardly ever seen a snail, and certainly not a slug.
Perfect climate, really.
Yeah, is it?
It is the perfect climate. One, you've obviously the cold helps kill off any sort of slugs and snails,
right?
And you don't have that issue going that low. That's what's knocking them back, and you obviously haven't got that out there. So I have complete envy. But they love the heat, as well as they can cope with extreme cold. That is not an issue. perfect climate. That's why they're out there, and then you should love them. But you need more than 3 varieties. There must be around 15,000 by now, I would have thought.
Oh, wow.
There is so many varieties out there. You can do more than 3.
Well, because basically that's what was here. But in fact, last spring we did go out, and I actually wasn't there, but little gardening group that we've got, friends of mine, went out knowing that I liked hostas and bought some little mini ones, like little sort of alpine almost type ones, and we've put those in. Yes, are they miniatures? That's what they're called. So looking forward to seeing those.
Have you put them
growing
in the ground?
Yes, we put them in
they
the spring.
They may not like the ground. So I see how you get on with them. That'll be really interesting to see how you do. So with the miniatures, that's something I always recommend, that you grow in pots and not the ground, because the ground sometimes can be too wet for them. They don't like too much winter wet. That's when they'll rot and you'll lose them. Normally with the miniatures, we would say keep in a pot, and then you put under some an overhanging building or shrub, something to keep the moisture off, and they're just a lot easier to keep.
Where are hostas originally from? Where do they originate from?
They originate
is Japan.
from Japan. Yeah, absolutely. Where you can find them wild growing out there in the hills, but there'll be quite plain varieties. But yeah, they're very, very popular in America. Very popular indeed. Lots of breeding takes place out in the Netherlands and Belgium. From when I started collecting at the beginning, there was very few varieties that were accessible and available around, and now it's exploded. Everybody's breeding, everybody's doing everything, and there is so much now. And a lot of the breeding now we're doing, so things have got a lot better pest resistance. So the good attributes of one plant you're trying to bring through into the newer varieties. So especially, and basically the ones that have got a better pest resistance, I've always found, are the ones with a much thicker leaf. So if you've got some of the big blues, and it doesn't have to be blue,
we do. We have a lovely blue one. It's just going to have a thick leaf. You'll find that they are really, they have, nothing is generally 100% pest free, nothing at all, unless you obviously live where you are in Germany. Well,
but in this country, nothing is 100%. No. But there's some that are very close up there.
I have 2 more questions sort of for here, because we have this gardening group here and we're always trying to sort of improve the garden, make it look better. Is there a good companion plant, something that would be associated well with this?
Anything, ferns, epimediums, anything basically. Lots of things go well, but you always have to remember with a hosta, whenever they receive it, it looks like this tiny, if you get it in its root system, there's nothing of it, and people think, oh, that's not going to be very big, and then they put it in the ground and then it explodes as soon as it starts to grow, and then it's enormous. And people don't realise that hostas come in different sizes, and they go, why's my hosta not growing? I'm going, no, it will be growing fine, but you've chosen a medium variety that will only get to sort of 30 centimetres, and where the giant varieties can be meters, and they are enormous, and the spread is enormous. So they come in 4 different ranges of sizes basically, and it's to be aware what you've bought and giving it the right amount of space. It's easy when you've got in a pot, because as it matures as a plant, it will get to its full height and you can then keep moving it. And that's the wonderful thing about growing them in pots. You can move them around exactly and get them in the right situation.
But my other question, which Sally's going to laugh at me when I say this, is there anything that is ever edible or medicinal about a hosta?
Yeah, they are edible. Definitely are edible. They eat them in Japan. So the more prolific varieties, and I think the ones with not such a thick leaf, they definitely do eat them. It's quite a delicacy. They make relishes and God knows what out of them. But yeah, some of them are quite expensive, and I wouldn't want to be chopping them up. But yeah, some of the older varieties, they really do, and they do grow them. You'll see them. Yeah. Out in Japan, they eat them regularly.
So you'd cut the leaf off and sort of somehow
I've never even
make it
one.
Well, well, that's a definite.
But
That's
I
a
have
definite for
sold
me.
them, and people have come in and said, I'm going to buy this to take this to chop it up. And I cry. I'm like, they're my
Oh.
children, and you're about to chop them up. So
So maybe, Ali, if you're going to chop them, keep it quiet, okay? Don't tell Vicky that you're chopping them up, okay? I think that's just a
as long
behind.
as they haven't come from my nursery, I
It's
will
okay.
cope.
It's okay. I have so many here. I have hundreds. I have hundreds of hostas. I'm sure a few little leaves wouldn't matter in a salad.
I think they're most delicious when they're coming up and it's the new shoots. So a bit
Exactly.
like an asparagus, where it's shooting up and it's all fresh. That's when
Yeah.
they cut them up and they eat them.
This is,
Oh,
this
look out.
Yes.
this is just
Ali
joy
basically
to
just
my
sees
ears.
anything she can eat. I can just see they've gone, basically. They're goners now. That's their chance gone in Moscow. They'll be just like decimated.
That's fantastic to hear that. So they're not poisonous or anything. So that's
No,
that's
not
great.
not at all. Not at all. Not to humans. They're fine.
Thank you.
We should touch on the subject of
Yes, we
snails,
should.
because if you, I know, Ali, I'm not going to say you're smug at all, but
Yeah,
you're
she's
fine over
sitting
there, aren't
pretty.
you? She's just sitting pretty, sitting
I
pretty.
don't like to say, but
No. Whereas I have to confess that the couple of years ago, I almost just gave up on hostas, and I've always loved them and I've always had them in pots. But as they were utterly decimated, I was like, sometimes you just have to admit defeat. And then I met you, Vicky, and you talked about your garlic wash and the spray,
Yeah.
and making your own garlic, which I did. Religiously sprayed it all over them. Oh, my goodness, they were phenomenal. It was like,
Did it work for you then?
Yes, amazingly. So
And did
tell
you
me
do
about
it
snails.
weekly?
Yes.
You did do it weekly.
Yes.
Yeah, many do that garlic wash, and it works really well. You have to apply that weekly, and after heavy rain, and it can be absolutely brilliant. And it's very cheap and natural, and it hurts nothing. It's literally a deterrent. And also, you can do crazy things like me, like go out at midnight and hunt for them.
I do that
And
too.
spend the next 3 hours of your life walking around with a head torch on, collecting them all up and then releasing them in the forest like a good girl. That's, yes. So, yeah, there's quite a few things you can do. People try many things, and I have people coming up saying all different things they try and what works for them. So, but yeah, we recommend the garlic wash, and I use nematodes as well for the slugs and for things like vine weevil. So nematodes are very, very good, but are quite tricky to apply at times. So you have to have the right temperature. A nematode's a microorganism, and basically it'll come to you in a post with a cold pack, and you then have to apply it to the water at the right temperature. You have to keep it all agitated as you're applying it. But basically you have to water it down into the pot, and then they just start to devour them from the inside out, I think, I'm afraid. And but they work very well.
Does it become very stressful when you've got a big show coming up, Vicky, and you've got all these perfect hostas that you want to take? I mean, I'm just imagining what that feels like in the run-up. And you don't want a snail to suddenly chomp its way through.
From the moment the first hosta starts to send up a little shoot, as well as it being the most exciting thing ever, it is also the most terrifying, because I'm waiting for the first thing to come and devour it. Mice love to chew them off. So they discovered the nursery, the other thing. So I have to look out for mice. That's the first one who comes and does all the damage. And then it's the slugs. So I start hunting. Well, some years I've had hostas up in January, which is crazy. I like to make sure we try not even drop the sides on the tunnels or anything. We don't force them. We try to hold everything back till March to try and stop the onset of the growth and everything coming. But so I start hunting before then.
And how many have you got? How many hostas do you actually have to hunt amongst?
Oh gosh, now you're talking. I dread to think, because I have my collection and everything else. We're talking tens and tens of thousands. Lots and lots. Yeah. The nursery's kind of over an acre site.
Do you have an army of
It's
people
me.
with head torches? It's just you.
No, it's me. That's why it's 3 hours, and then I do one tunnel one night, and then I go back the next night to do another tunnel. Yeah. Yeah, it's a never-ending battle. And yes, so it is very scary. So when the show plants are coming up and everything, try and keep them perfect. You're fighting anything and everything that wants to devour it or lay an egg on it, and then the heat, because a lot of the time I'm growing under tunnels, so I can try and control the water and to get the maximum heat to get good growth. But then suddenly they'll be coming up in spring. They've got lush, soft leaves, and then we'll have a heat wave and the tunnels will have steam coming off them. And literally you'll see that watch them melt inside, and then it's trying to then get the tunnels to cool down. It's you're juggling every hat can possibly, and it is extremely stressful. Extremely stressful, but when you get to the show and put on a lovely display and get lovely comments, it kind of pays back for all the work. But there is so much work.
Is winter the relaxing time for hosta growers then, when they've basically dropped, they're down, you can't see them, they've gone down below
I can
ground?
relax in the way of when they've gone to sleep. I can relax thinking they shouldn't be too badly being devoured by anything, apart from obviously if I've got vine weevil. But I would have I put treatments on twice in spring and twice in autumn for them. So I'm touching wood now. I haven't got much of a problem, I don't think. I think I'm fine. But you can never accept there's nothing. So, and I suppose, yeah. When did I relax? Christmas Day and Boxing Day is when I relax. But apart from that, no, I work every day because if not, then you're trying to catch up on jobs. I've got enough work at the nursery for 10 people. My son helps me and my husband reluctantly on occasions.
But otherwise it's just you, basically. It's just
yes.
you.
Things like Chelsea are hideous. The setup is hideous. It's so hard, so difficult. It's the most amazing experience, but it is really, really, really hard work to do because it's such long days. But it's the most prestigious and it is fabulous. Yeah, but very, very hard work. And if you go around looking at the exhibitors, they are just purely exhausted.
I'm sure they are. It's incredible, and whatever you display, it always looks so amazing, doesn't it? Though I mean, it's all your best work, isn't it?
Well, you try to, but you can go to a show with 1 week. You think we start showing probably from April, and what I take to the show could quite easily get damaged. So you need a whole new set of plants for the next show and the next show. And if you're doing, well, when I first started, I did over 20 shows in the year, and you soon run out of show plants putting on massive displays. So to try and carry through the same plants, which a lot of them I will, because I haven't got, there's so many varieties. You try and have 3 of each, but some I will only have 1 of because they're really slow growing. And they're fabulous. But a lot of people, you'll find dust at the shows gets thick on the leaves and you can't get it off. The climate changing for them will affect their leaves. So some where you'll take them out of a tunnel and then move them. By the time you've got there, they've decided to come out in spots because they've absolutely hated the journey. And they are then a write-off. Or you've gone to there, and somewheres I've had shows where they've had lighting in, you've been inside a hall, they've got stretched, and then you'll bring them out of the show and they'll all collapse because they've just got stretched in a week of being in there. So there's it can be so challenging.
I think you can really feel Vicky's anxiety and affection for her hosta plants. She's already given us lots of tips about caring for hostas, but if you are now inspired to go and get one, here are a couple more. Yeah. I'm thinking there are some people with gardens, there are some people with just balcony space, there are some people with a little bit of front yard space, and that's why I think for our plant stories it's really nice to have plants in a way that everyone can have a go at growing, however much space or little space they've got. So, beginner's guide, I think the things I guess I would be asking is, when would you buy them? Any ones you'd recommend? Anything we need to know? If it's the first time we've ever gone looking for a hosta, what should we look for?
Gosh, there's so many things to cover there. So if you're going, first you've got to look at what situation you're growing into. So if you're going to plant into the ground, go for something that has got a better pest resistance. Full stop. Don't go near anything else if you're just starting out. So go for something with a thicker leaf. And then you've got to look at your situation. So if you're in shade, there is some that will only take the shade. Every hosta will take shade, but only a few can cope with the sun. But there's definitely some things, hostas like June, that can take a really good amount of sun. And with June, her colour, she changes. She's like a little chameleon. In the summer, her leaves will get, the central part will go really nice and cream, but you can move her into the shade, and the centre bit will go a near green, a lot deeper colour. So yes, just think about where you're planting it, and look at the requirements for that plant. So, and the sizes. But I would never, planting out in the garden, I would never really put out miniatures or smalls straight into the ground. There is probably a couple things like blue mouses that you could possibly get away with out there, or put them in a trough. But as long as you've got a trough or something that you could then, something that's really quite free draining for them for the winter. But otherwise, yeah, into pots, and pots are simple. 95% of hostas are very happy in pots. There's only a few that don't like the pot and like the ground. Things like Francis Williams likes to go in the ground more, I would say, more than a pot. And it would be the giants that struggle more going in the pot than in the ground.
Have you got a couple of favourites that you would recommend?
Too many. Insane. That's a horrible question, and insane. But for a very easy starting hosta, things like June is fantastic.
So does June go in a pot or in the soil then? You can put June in
She can go anywhere. You can do what you want with her. She'll grow anywhere.
And normal compost, a bag of compost? Could you put them in a bag of compost?
I like to use a multi-purpose, and I will add with that a third of John Innings, number 2 or 3. And then I like to add a really good amount of perlite. A good 10% of my mix will be perlite. And that just creates really great aeration within the soil. They absolutely thrive on it, and they love it.
And can we put your recipe for the garlic wash on the website? Because it is, I mean, the whole house will smell of garlic, obviously, when you do this. But it is a great wash as long as you kind of
yeah. It's not my recipe. It's been around for years, but it works a treat. Absolutely, put it on the website. It is really good.
I mean, now that I've thought of you with the vision of you with tens of, with just thousands of hostas with your night torch, my little small collection when I go out, and I'll say to Andrew, I'm just going out tonight to look at the hostas, and he's like, off she goes with the kind of, to look for snails. But it's nothing compared to yours. So I think we should say to people, it's not going to be a big deal. You just have to keep on top of the snails and not get too frustrated if they nibble at the odd leaf. You just have to accept it, presumably, and just say that's life.
Yeah, you can always have your sacrificial lamb. I have them. So
sorry, explain more.
A sacrificial lamb. So there's some hostas that are really, really yummy compared to others, and you can have them with other plants as well. Like,
so what's a yummy hosta?
So a yummy hosta, something with a very thin, an Oreo marginata normally, something with a very thin leaf. And basically, anything will go towards that. So when I go out hunting, I will hunt for slugs, snails, vine weevil, everything. And I will go to them plants first to see. And they can smell them, they can taste them, they find them. And I will pick everything off of that. It works a treat. I mean, sometimes you plant strawberries, and I hate to say even heucheras or things around, that they all can attract different pests. And even if you have a lovely collection, don't put your sacrificial lamb amongst it, put it away from it. So you're not calling that's the most delicious thing there. You're not calling them into that. You will put that in the opposite corner and they will go there. It's the same when people use things like slug pellets. I mean, they don't work anywhere near like they used to, because the formaldehyde ones are now banned. But people would cast them just generally around the garden and in handfuls, and they put too much and then they wouldn't work anyway. Less is more when it comes to things like that. And I wouldn't actually put them under the plant, but I would put them away from it. So you're calling them away from the plant, and that's where they will go and eat.
I know, sorry, this is going back again, but in terms of watering them, I mean, because we have big areas, we basically just take the hose around with us. Is it okay just to basically hose them from the top? I mean, I know a lot of plants you should water around the base, shouldn't you? So you're not covering the leaves, but
generally,
is it okay?
I wouldn't water over the leaves personally.
No.
Basically, with tap water normally marks the leaves. Rainwater is absolutely fine to water overhead, but tap water, no. We always say if you're growing in pots, try and keep them in the summer period with a dish underneath and water from the dish, and they take up what they want, and they really can't overwater them. But otherwise, they're better off, hostas are better off having one really, really good water once a week than constant daily watering. That makes them shallow rooted, and they don't want to be constantly sodden up around their necks. You should let the top 10% of the soil dry out between watering, and you just look at the plants. It will tell you when it wants watering.
Good luck with your hostas, and may those snails and slugs decide to go elsewhere, a long way away from your pots. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Our Plant Stories. If you listen to podcasts, you'll know that at this point people often ask you to rate or review it. I love to know if someone has enjoyed a particular episode, and maybe why. Perhaps it's because their parents grew that plant, or they just love hearing someone so passionate about one particular plant, or perhaps June has just moved into your garden. So if you can spare a couple of minutes to do that on your podcasting app, that would be great. As well as these plant stories, we'll be having a few plant story offshoots, because whenever I research these stories, I seem to find offshoots that I think will be fun to follow up. So watch this space. They will be coming. Our Plant Stories is presented and produced by me, Sally Flatman. Thank you for listening. If you want to show your support for this podcast via Buy Me a Coffee, then the link is in the show notes or on the website ourplantstories.com. I promise you, your virtual coffee will go towards the podcast, not plants.